Yo, Titus, can we play Boltgun, please?
No.
I found an old floppy disk of the game, and it seems a shame to waste. I will be extra good, and I won't hand you into the Inquisition if you let me.
You promise and swear on the Emperor?
I promise.
As promised, Leandros, I will set Boltgun up on this device. Since we don't have long, just speed run the game.
Yay, thank you, Titus. You're my best friend. Hi guys, it's me, Captain Leandros of the Ultramarine 2nd Company. But you won't know that as you haven't played Space Marine 2 yet. After I got Titus done in by the Inquisition, I found out I can pretty much do it with anyone to work my way up the ranks. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite games I played when I was an aspirant. Poncha babe, take it from here.
Warhammer 40k Boltgun, what is it? I mean, yeah, pretty much. What were you expecting? Boltgun at birth has been given the name a boomer shooter, which is one way to describe it. The game is a first-person run and gun shooter in the art style of a 90s game. Wouldn't it be amazing if we got a Warhammer game set in the 1930s cartoon art style? Maybe one day. The game plays on the idea of going back to retro games in the 90s, set in the art style of sprite, or more commonly known as pixels, similar to Space Hulk 1993 or Space Hulk 1995.
I got you, bro, don't worry.
Obviously, Doom during this period was the main first-person shooter that had a certain charm that stayed through its series of games. Since Games Workshop was founded in 1975, it seems like Boltgun fills a void of a game that should have been there.
This is the sort of game Sergeant Sidonus would play. He was very old. It was probably the reason why he got clapped by Nemeroth as he was suffering from dementia.
The game was developed by All Rock Digital, who have made such games as Beer Brewing Simulator and a couple of strategy games. No previous Warhammer titles, however they are specialists in adapting board game IPs into video games, and it does seem like they have some Warhammer fans in their studio. The publisher though is Focus Entertainment, who does seem to have the full go-ahead to make any Warhammer game they want from Games Workshop. This includes Necromunda Hired Gun and Underhive Wars, Stormground, which I will cover at some point, Battlefleet Gothic, Space Hulk Tactics and Deathwing, so the publisher knows their Warhammer. Boltgun is set in the universe of Warhammer 40,000, where there is only war from aliens, Xenos and Dark Gods. It has you play as a Space Marine, part of the 13th Legion, also known as an Ultramarine, the poster child, the rule follower, and the only redeeming quality is they have Guilliman leading them. They are the chapter most well known for following the Codex Astartes to the letter, and the game brilliantly demonstrates this. When you're AFK, you crack out your pocket edition of the Codex Astartes and start memorising to your heart's content.
Every Ultramarine is taught this on Macragge. Reading 1,000 pages of the Codex Astartes a day keeps the Dark Gods at bay.
In particular, you play the role of Stern Guard veteran Malum Kaido, and these guys are pretty much legends within the chapter, recognisable by their helmets, or as the orcs say, excel at range combat, and what I do love is they add their signature bolt rounds, which I'm pretty sure many people don't know about. This includes crack and penetrator rounds, dragonfire bolts, hellfire rounds, and a few more. It's brilliant to see them in game represented.
Malum Kaido. I've not heard of him before, but if he's personally taken out an entire Chaos army, he's almost guaranteed to be corrupted by Chaos. Look at this, only a heretic could survive all this warp exposure.
The game has you work with an Inquisitor from the Ordo Malleus, or Demon Hunters, who asks you to retrieve a plot device with a big baddie trying to stop you. You land on the world and charge straight towards to retrieve this objective, fighting all manners of abomination from Chaos God Tzeentch, Nurgle and the Black Legion, until you complete the game. Without spoilers, the story is rather simple. Half the time you probably won't even be following it due to two reasons. Firstly, most of the story is told through either loading into the game and 4 cutscenes. That's it. Your character doesn't engage in any dialogue with the story, and there's very little time for pause in the game. You're always moving, and sometimes it does feel like levels blend together after a certain time. Don't expect to be immersed in something that will grab your attention span, especially if you're new to Warhammer. You probably won't be getting much out of this story at all, as it plays itself off as a sequel from the game Space Marine. And if you haven't played that, I do recommend you play Space Marine before touching this game, and get more invested in the lore. Since Boltgun is set after Space Marine, you could call the game Space Marine 1.5, as it is an official sequel to the story. It plays on the idea that after the boss Grimskull Wars, the Inquisition have been carefully watching Graia. A few naughty tech priests have been messing around with a fragment of the power source from Space Marine 1, or as Grimskull calls it, this is starting to cause a warp rift in space which needs to be stopped, so you are assigned to go down to the planet and retrieve the fragment. You get knocked off course, but you get to its last known location. You fight the Black Legion, Chaos Cultist, but you notice demons start to pop up. Once you get to the last known location of the fragment, you find out it's locked inside a vault. However, a Chaos Psyker is also after it. You locate him with the fragment, and he's like,
"Mwahahaha, you're going to die, corpse worshipper."
He then teleports to your ship and sets the warp engines to overheat with the fragment. This increases the size of the warp rift in space. You make your way onto the Greyan Crown by Thunderhawk and you fight your way to the Psyker. However, once you reach him, you realise he's your son. Never mind, this isn't the Horus Heresy. You grav cannon his ass to oblivion, saving the fragment. The final battle is a spectacle. Since there's Greater Demon and Warp Spawn, it really makes it look epic. The story didn't have any involvement from GW writers, but personally for a Retros 90s game, an in-depth story with characters you fall in love with I personally feel like wouldn't work in Warhammer. Due to it being a sequel, I do love the little callbacks to the first game. This is similar to how Space Marine had the interaction from the Blood Ravens from Dawn of War. Malam Kaido references both Sidonus wanting to protect the planet on his behalf, and Titus.
I will finish the work Captain Titus started.
What the fuck did Malam Kaido just say? I will finish the work Peasant Titus started. But Titus is a traitor. Bring me an astropath right now. I need to send a message to Inquisitor Thrax.
One thing I do love is the game makes the Vengeance launcher canon. This weapon was only made for Space Marine and it's nice to see it officially be recognised after all this time. The story ends with the Inquisitor securing the fragment, the warp rift closing, and a hint to Khorne in a sequel with some guardsmen fighting. I'm not going to lie, as a Warhammer and Space Marine fanboy, I really did like the story and what they were going for. However, it is a niche group of players who will appreciate it. The gameplay loop of Boltgun is fairly simple. You spawn in, kill enemies, get to the door at the end via any means, and get to the next mission. The mechanics can be really broken down into two areas, level design and the combat. For a retro shooter, they've got the feel of a Space Marine down rather well. AWSD movement feels fast, smooth and responsive to any type of action you take whilst remaining lightning quick. You have access to a chainsword which whilst on higher difficulties still does feel viable to some degree. Your F button is a charge which turns anything in front of you to a bug on a car windscreen. You have two other abilities as well, which is a grenade and an ability called No Fear, which is when you're low on health, it makes you invulnerable for a few seconds, like a last chance ability. For staying alive, you have health and contempt, which is like armor that you can get back by killing enemies. As you progress through the campaign, you'll gain more powerful weapons in your arsenal, and these save after each mission unless you select a different mission from your save file. Fortunately, all the weapons that you earn up to that point are on the level somewhere that you play, so you can always get your arsenal back. Good job, devs. For weapons, you have the mighty Boltgun that shoots mini rockets at the enemy, the shotgun which is a Nurgling's worst enemy, the plasma gun which can overheat if shot too much, which does damage you, but no overcharge, the Big Daddy Bolt Gun, the Vengeance Launcher or the Sticky Grenade Launcher from Space Marine, the Melter Gun, Volkite Caliber, and the Grav Cannon. Oh how I've missed you, you've been out of the games and tabletop for so long. Grav cannons are especially cool to see in game since depending on the enemy's mass, the more damage it does. It's basically a BMI gun. It's fat-phobic. The game offers a great range of enemies from Nurglings, Cultists, Pink and Blue Horrors as chaff, Plague Toads and Flamers and Astartes as range enemies, with a couple of specials thrown in like the Aspiring Champion.
Don't fucking run away from me!
I do feel, however, that the game should have had more enemies, or should have at least spread them over the 3 chapters, with Chaos Marines and Cultists in 1, Tzeentch in 2nd, and Nurgle in chapter 3. The reason I say this is because by the time you finish chapter 2, you've pretty much seen all the enemies. They get reused in Chapter 3, and one more faction would have been the cherry on top of making the third arc feel fresh. When it comes to fighting the enemies, the game does the tabletop justice. Each weapon has a strength value which you compare to the toughness value of the enemy, so if the strength is greater than the toughness, that is your go-to weapon, and I love this as it's just such a nice nod to the tabletop, and more Warhammer games should implement this system. The last two areas of combat are secrets and difficulty. Your boy completed the game on Exterminatus mode and got all the secrets in the game, which I bet no other reviewer did, so you better get your mum, your nan and your smegging dog to subscribe. Difficulty levels do make a massive difference. Exterminatus even has the quote,
"Not even the Primarch shall survive."
and they weren't joking. Enemies have more health and there's just way more of them. The AI overall has been decent, but there are one or two moments where they just don't do anything. The secrets were some of the biggest trolls in the game, and I'm disappointed. I thought the secrets would be some interesting lore, Easter eggs, or something you at least earn at the end of the game for collecting them all, like a Grey Knight skin or another extra mission or something like that, but instead the secrets are just power up items like more melee damage, ammo, infinite ammo or slowing down time, a vortex grenade and a few others. It just feels like a bit of a waste of time, and it's 100% not worth your time collecting them. There's just very little incentive for the player to get these secrets since you can kill the bosses without them. At the very least, you should be rewarded with something for collecting them all. The troll secrets are by far the worst in the game though. In certain maps there's switches you can turn off and on, and they don't contribute anything as far as I'm aware. If someone can prove me wrong, please do let me know, but I found loads of these switches you can turn on and off that have no function. I must have spent hours looking for stuff, but nothing came from them. It's the reason I've taken 20 hours to complete the game. Almost all levels have some sense of verticality to make use of the movement mechanics. There's sometimes parkour, but it is very rare. Sometimes you can pass back through parts of the map you've already covered with newly spawned enemies. There are jump packs on the map which you can utilise to move to other areas, which is nice to see in game, but the main part of the levels is collecting or finding keys to proceed by opening doors. I think the game could have benefited from a few different mission types, perhaps one where you have to defend an area with some guardsmen, escort some important cargo to proceed, or maybe just keeping it simple was better. I do like the levels that incorporate the ceiling coming down and the lava rising. It adds a different flavour to the mission.
Codex Directive 46483204395834 states, no Adeptus Astartes can use a warp portal. Malim Kaido is just asking to be tortured by the Grey Knights, the Inquisition and the Imperial Regent at this point.
Graia was rather crap when it came to environments. Being a Forge world, it's hard to make something unique that isn't a giant Imperial Manufactorum. The game does try to move away from this though, set in the mountains of Graia. You can actually see Titans in the background, hab zones where people live, places corrupted by warp fuckery that distort the surroundings. These look great by the way. The canyons, cave areas, Manufactorums again of course, the Inquisition's ship, which does show the scale of the things inside them, smelting decks, the grand elevator in the ship, gun decks, and you can shoot these as well. A lot of walls and backgrounds are just images and they use normal mapping to create the illusion of more detail, but it stays with a nice low quality retro art style. Effects in the game look brilliant. Popping a cultist with a bolt gun, the green energy from the grav cannon, smoke coming off a plasma gun, plague toads shooting you, and you can't forget blood, and also blood. Enemies spawning in for the Immaterium, even simple things like a pink horror splitting into blue horrors. You aren't going to be disappointed at all, and the care has been taken to stay with the retro art style and not overdo things. Rahul Kohli voices Malim Kaido, and he does some great voice lines shouting, screaming in the name of the Emperor. Take a listen.
The might of the Imperium will crush you! You invoke my ire! Renegade filth! Traitor scum! I'll purge the galaxy off your taint!
I'm an Ultramarines fanboy.
Maybe it's just me, but I do feel they wasted Rahul's voice acting capability. Perhaps they were going for a silent protagonist, but this is Warhammer 40k filled with rich lore. They could have had Malim Kaido talk to himself like Titus did in Space Marine about what his next objective is, or him explaining what he's fighting, or coming to terms with the amount of chaos he's engaging. Then again, you're fighting so much with very little downtime with the music blaring, maybe it wouldn't have worked. When you first boot up the game, you get hit by a couple of nostalgic tracks giving you an idea of what you're in for. All of the main menu music is in an album called Oblivion, which was created by the band D-Rocks in Warhammer Records. Some of this was also featured in the game Space Hulk, but it's well worth a listen. Whilst you're fighting, the music and sound effects audio balance can be rather bad, so I do recommend turning down the sound effects just slightly, but when you're in a fight and the tune is right, Boltgun's OST doesn't disappoint. The same goes for the sound effects, and I feel some of them have been slightly distorted or bass boosted just to make them feel almost aged, but everything sounds great. Every gun packs a punch, chainsawing enemies, footsteps make you feel like a walking tank, and even if you land, you feel the weight behind you. Something they could have improved on is player awareness. Vermintide did this brilliantly. Having distinct sound effect cues for each enemy so you know what's behind you would have been nice. Many people may not know that Boltgun uses a different way to create assets than just drawing digital pixel art. They firstly model the enemies in a 3D modelling software, then take pictures from different angles. They then put these in game and the images change depending on the side you're fighting, so you're basically fighting cylinders that move with pictures attached to them. Nurglings are by far the best things in this game. Their animations of pulling faces and showing you their arse. Cultists when they get jump scared as well is just brilliant. All the enemies have attacking animations, idle animations which all look perfectly fine. All the weapons have a nice level of detail with ultramarine logos and aquillas on the shotgun and plasma gun. Reloading all the weapons looks perfectly as well with no clipping or odd animations. It just feels smooth and there's no concern there. Boltgun is the first ever game I've played with a retro scale, which increases the pixelation, bloom and palette of the game. You can see the difference between fully scaled out and off here. The game offers full key binding, a no frame rate cap, customizable crosshair to a degree, you can turn off head bobbing and screen shaking if you don't like that. Of course, we here at Poncha love UI artists, and I thank the devs very much for having help sections that clearly outline all the abilities, the strength and toughness scale I mentioned before, a grenade's range is clearly outlined, health is a number, not a bar, pickups are noticeable and distinguished to the other stuff going on the screen. Very good job, devs. By far the best thing though is the little quote you get after dying, like in Space Marine. Imagine being an Adeptus Astartes and dying to a Nurgling. How we doing, lads? Once again, another review bingo because I'm trying to move away from numbers. Boltgun has been an absolute blast, and for once, it's nice just to have a 40k game that feels finished. Many of you could make the argument to buy the game right now, but hold on, ask yourself this: do you like Warhammer 40k? Have you played Space Marine, and do you like retro shooters? If yes, buy the game right now. You don't need to wait for a patch, it's not lacking content, it's a fair price at 19 quid with a 4GB download, which is nothing. It's definitely worth your time. Of course, friends don't matter. However, if you don't know the Warhammer IP and you're looking for a game to be an introduction for you, this is not that game. Or if you don't care about Warhammer and just want a decent shooter game, I recommend you stay away. The game's not bad, it's just there's better options for what you're looking for. Buy Doom, or one of the many other games like it. Simple.
So did you have fun speed running Boltgun and pretending to be a captain?
Just you wait, Titus. I'll work my way up to Chapter Master and I'll be the Primarch's favorite. You'll see, you heretical traitor ultraberry smurf looking bitch.
Leandros, I will see you again in Space Marine 2. When I do, the Codex won't have a guideline for what I will do to you.
As for the future, we are really getting the ball rolling now when it comes to videos. A few of you know what my next video is because you've actually seen me in game playing it, but lads, it's been Poncha, take care, and I wish you all the best.